last 2 weeks in chapters 9 and 10. Why, I've been rushing through because I wanted to get through the whole chapter. Now, it would be good to do that again. And when I sat down, I thought I'm going to go ahead, try to get through chapter 11, and then begin to look at it. And if I do, why, we're going to miss some important things down at the end. There's some very controversial verses down at the end of this that is being used today a lot in concerning Israel. So if I do it, why, I'm not going to have time for that. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to deal with the first 15 verses tonight. If we get through with that a quarter after, class is over. We sit and visit. And if it takes me 2 hours, then we don't visit in there. But we're not going to be rushing through like we have been in the last couple of weeks, and I just wanted you to know that. Now, keep this in mind. Chapters 1 through 8 is the doctrinal section. That's the section that tells you that you're saved by faith and not by the Jewish law. Then, as we move on in then to these 8 and 9 right here, I guess we do it like this. I got them before the horse right there. In chapters 9 through 11, it explains how those in Christ are God's chosen people rather than the physical Jews. We always have to keep in mind in this general, it's hard to do. What was the major problem in the church of the first century that you and I don't have anything to do with today? We don't even think about it. Doesn't even cross our mind. What was it? What? All right, it was a Jewish problem, wasn't it? Circumcision. What's the relationship of the old law to the new law? When you become a Christian, do you have to become a proselyte? Which means if you're a Gentile, do you have to become a Jew? And then you're baptized into Christ? And this was the number one major problem, bigger than any other problem they had in the New Testament period of time. Now, the reason for that is because for the past 1,600 years, in fact, for the past 2,000 years, Abraham was called 2,000 years before Christ came, and for 2,000 years, the Jewish nation had lived believing they were the greatest thing on the face of this earth. God had chosen them. If they had Abraham's blood in their veins, they were the chosen people. They were the end result. That's all that there was. They were the solution to all of the problems. Now, when all of a sudden Christ comes, and then the Apostle Paul starts preaching and showing that Jew and Gentile stand on exactly the same ground. In fact, the Jewish nation has been destroyed, and the Jew has no benefit over the Gentile. This would blow their mind. Now, you and I can't conceive of 2,000 years of prejudice in any way, shape, or form. Can you? Can anybody trace your ancestry back 2,000 years? And your ancestors and all of your families have believed one spatial thing for 2,000 years that you now have to change? No, that doesn't exist. It did in the first century period of time. So, as Paul is preaching to these Jews, he has to deal with this. He deals with it in almost all the books that he writes. And that's what he's dealing with here. He's trying to show them now, in the first 8 chapters, you're saved by faith in Christ, not by the works of the law. Then the Jews are going to say, what in the world are you saying? Paul now, in 9, 10, and 11, is going to tell them, here's what you are. Here's what the Jewish nation is. That God only used it as an instrument. Now we've dealt with chapters 9 and doing this. Let's look at a couple of things. We learned that God selected Israel to bring in the Christ. So Israel is important. Christ came in through Israel. God gave his law to Moses because Israel was very sinful. Now what did Israel think? Why did Israel think God gave them the law? What was their thought pattern? We're spatial. See, he did it because we're spatial. No, God gave them the law because they were very sinful. And it was given in order to keep them under control until Christ came. He only called them and gave them the law until Christ came. That's the things that we've studied so far. Now, Israel was so sinful by the time Christ came that Jesus compared the nation to a dead carcass. God used the Roman government to destroy it. Now, again, we have to keep this in mind, that in 70 A.D., we all answer destruction of Jerusalem. But what did the destruction of Jerusalem really mean? I think today, you and I, kind of like a little 3-year-old kid. You ask him, you say, is there a God? Oh, yes, there is a God. Okay? Who made me? God. Now, they give you the right answer, but can a 3-year-old child understand God? Or are they just mimicking and giving an answer that they have been taught? Okay? And so there's lots of problems like this that we have, and you and I have this problem, and that is, what did that destruction of Jerusalem do to the nation at that time? So here's this nation. It's been in existence for 2,000 years, and now then, it is totally eradicated. The government is destroyed. It's done. And even today, we get caught up in thinking, well, the Jews are the spatial people of God. No, they were the spatial people of God to bring Christ into existence, but then they were so corrupt, God says, you're dead, there's no use of keeping you, and so the Jewish nation was destroyed. And so we need to understand these things. Recognize the nation of Israel as his people. Now, God had never recognized